Hi, I'm Dani Romero with Homes.com News, and I'm joined with Ryan Serhant, New York City power broker, to talk about the reality of today's housing market. Thanks, Ryan, for being here. If you could write down the housing policy for New York, what would it look like?
I am not running for mayor. That's a 4-hour question. Listen, like think about any city as a company. You have to incentivize your lowest level employees as the same time you're incentivizing your highest level employees. And you don't want one without the other. A company full of low-level employees is not going to get too far and may not even survive. And a company with just high-level employees may sink pretty soon because no one's going to do anything. You need the lower-level employees, so low income, first-time New Yorkers, 18 to 26-year-olds, seeing in front of them across the street, which is what makes New York so cool, what is possible for them at the highest level, because it gives them something to be motivated by. And that is also because as a human species, we are incentivized to do more. Otherwise, we wouldn't be alive anymore. Right? It's just a process of evolution. And so for housing, it's the same thing. You need to, and listen, it's a really, really difficult problem to solve. They've tried through City of Yes, 485X, a handful of different programs. I was always a big favor, though, of lightening the burden on letting builders build. One of the best, I think, housing policies that they created post 9/11, and it was frustrating that it had to come out of a tragedy like that, were the 421A and the 421G tax abatements, which enabled a developer to build residential housing and to defer real estate taxes for a certain period of time, somewhere between 10 and 25 years, depending on the tax abatement. And they could pass on those savings to the new owners. So if you're building a condo building under a 421A new construction tax abatement, you could bring that building to market and not have any real estate taxes for 10 years. New York City had a real estate boom after 2001. I mean, the whole market was a real estate boom after 9/11, but in particular because they let builders build. They moved quickly because there was immediate urgency and incentive to do so. Right now, because, go back to the beginning of our conversation, because the system, I won't even say the market, the housing system that exists is built on stability and not on mobility. We don't actually have a housing market, right? We have like a housing lottery. I think the winners are existing homeowners who've watched their wealth soar. I think the losers are the millions of Americans, let alone New Yorkers, who are locked out, priced out, stuck renting. Right? We have a $55 trillion marketplace, which I think kind of proves what we already know, which is that housing is the most valuable asset class in the entirety of the country, but it's also the least accessible. You know, remember during COVID with like Robinhood and those things? You know, if you were 21 years old, 18 years old, 16 years old, you never thought you could own stocks. And then all of a sudden with $1, you could own $1 worth of stock in a company. Why not? The stock market is accessible to everybody. It doesn't come without risk, but it's accessible to everybody. The housing market, the largest asset class in the United States, is not. The barrier of entry is a really, really high sticky price. People talk about the price of Bitcoin all the time. Like, oh, it's $120,000, it's $66,000 per Bitcoin. What's the cost per house? Way more expensive than a Bitcoin. This interview is going in a totally different direction than I thought it was going to go into, by the way.
You have argued that the housing market is stuck by policy, not home prices. Can you explain the role of the capital gains tax and how that plays in the housing market?
The housing market that we're in today is not a condition of COVID or a condition of rates, right? It is due to housing being built as America's most successful wealth generator and its most successful gatekeeper, right? You can't deposit home equity in the bank if you can't afford to buy in the first place for new purchasers. So the capital gains exclusion was put into the IRS code in 1997, and it hasn't been updated in nearly 30 years. And the median price of a home was under $200,000 at that time. No one's buying a house today for under $200,000. At least most people aren't. So if the government is going to charge us income taxes, local, state, city, and property taxes, and sales taxes, etc., they should keep up with the times as far as pricing is concerned, as far as inflation is concerned.
Well, critics have said that if you change the capital gains, then it would mainly benefit the wealthier homeowners. How do you really see it, though, play out?
Listen, sure, it might benefit the wealthy homeowners to start because it'll convince them to sell, right? Like the biggest risk we have right now is underbuilding, but also just a lack of homes. Like 2025 wasn't a price recession in housing. 2025 was a volume recession. Like sales were subdued because fewer owners were budging or moving at all. And so it'll convince certain sellers to say, it now makes sense for us to sell. And the people who have the control over the policies to adjust things like the IRS code are the ones who created this mess in the first place. Because it was post-war economics to reward stability, which makes a lot of sense. Coming out of a world war, what do you want to do if you're the government of a very, very terrified populace? You are creating policies that reward stability, right? Everything's going to be okay. Guess what? It's going to be okay for a long time. 30-year mortgages, right? So like you have, things that are just so far out into the future. And what does that do? It rewards stability. It punishes mobility. And you don't realize it's happening until it happens, like where we are right now. The equity that's locked up in these homes is locked up in the homes, and inventory needs to normalize from like emergency low to at least like meh, for buyers to get back into the market and to really, really absorb the inventory that is coming this spring. At least I think so.
Speaking about mobility and supply, then what kind of scale does it actually take to loosen up supply in a city like New York?
To answer your question directly, I think I would legalize housing across the 5 boroughs, not just luxury towers, but workforce housing people can actually live in by rezoning more neighborhoods to allow more apartments and to end bureaucratic red tape for new development. I think modernizing rules to unlock conversions and flexibility so we can build up in and around where people want to live is what needs to happen. I think every stalled or slowed down lot or shuttered office could become not just apartments either, right? They could become homes, sure, but they could become schools, they could become studios, they could become labs, they could become, who knows if we had the guts to say yes. I've also always wanted to, and you would need public assistance for this, to create like an ownership accelerator where there was a program that would help renters become owners through public and private partnerships and tax credits to create down payment assistance outside of just FHA financing, without punishing current landlords. I don't know. I could ramble at you for a long time, but that's my answer to start.
Well, on that note, what is the biggest disruption you see next in real estate?
You want me to say AI, so I will say AI. I think that we've taken a very different view on artificial intelligence at Serhant, whereas most of our brokerage competitors are using it for data and kind of creating LLM wrappers. I envision a world in which we can remove all administrative tasks from salespeople to make salespeople that much stronger. And I think that's going to be the biggest disruption, is probably replacing lower level agents with a far more empowered, higher level agent who has more time on their hands because of the tools they have in front of them. And there's only so many houses, so it's not like the agent's going to have so much more time to sell that many more houses. I mean, some markets just have only so much inventory. But I think agentic AI will replace a lot of those admin tasks, which will create much, much stronger agents to do that many more transactions.
What do you want your viewers to see in season 3 of Owning Manhattan?
Oh, finally a layup question. What do I want them to see? I think season 3 will feel very personal for everybody, not just for me. It felt like season 1 and 2 felt very personal for me, and were really kind of told through my eyes and the journey of building a company and what it's like to work with people. Season 3 will really open the door to the personal lives of kind of the people in my orbit, and I think it'll be really, really fun.
So did we get the scoop on that?
No, I'm just telling you. I have no scoop for you. I'm just telling you kind of what I would like it to be, but I have no updates for you.
Thank you again, Ryan, for all your insight. For more on residential news, head to homes.com/news.